Hello and welcome back to the Movie Pope podcast. And today we are going to be taking a look at the box office smash hit Deadpool versus Wolverine. Now, we went to go see that movie last Saturday and it was a barrel of laughs. I mean, we laughed our asses off. We cried a little bit on the inside and we were just glad to see the Merc with the mouth back in action, and this time in the MCU. But before we dive in, remember to like, comment, subscribe. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and let's dive in. Lee, how are you doing the week after Deadpool and Wolverine? How's it sinking into your psyche?
Great. I would say it's kind of interesting. I've seen maybe a little bit of a turn, and I don't know because we're doing this a week or so after it came out. I've noticed some other people are, kind of poking holes into some of the issues, which, I mean, there are some in this film. But I think for what it was or what I was expecting to get out of it, it delivered it and then some. So I think I really did enjoy it. I think for myself, right, the first two were fun, right? I really liked the first one. It absolutely stuck out. Second one was also fun, right? Probably not quite to the levels of the first one, but still quite, enjoyed it a good bit, right? And then when the third one came out, obviously, I'm looking at it through kind of a lens of the time period we're in right now. I think we've seen obviously a decline in the quality of, superhero films in particular within the Marvel universe. And when Disney bought Marvel and everything, we got kind of this concern over how would we see Deadpool? Would they kind of like neuter him? Like, what would you kind of see with the character? And I'm glad that as we went into watching this, that they had no problems with pretty much everything, other than maybe some drug usage, which they make a whole joke out of. But I'm glad to see that they allowed Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman to just be able to do what they want with the Deadpool and Wolverine characters.
Yeah, and that's that's the thing too, because of the fact that this is the first R-rated movie that to come out of the MCU, isn't it? Because most of the movies before were PG-13.
Yeah, that's a good question. I believe you're right, but someone will probably be like, "No, you're wrong." But as far as I know, you are correct with that statement.
But I mean, but that's the thing though, because because Deadpool works best when he's edgy, when he's being very mouthy, when he's doing things that you normally wouldn't expect in a movie. And what makes it even more fascinating is the fact that you're taking a character who flies off the seat of his pants and you drop him into the MCU where everything is a bit more tamed. It kind of reminds me of that scene from Age of Ultron where Iron Man says shit and Captain America says language. And I'm just wondering, do you think that's probably another reason why he wouldn't be allowed in the Avengers is because they would get tired of him pretty quickly. But I don't want to spoil things too much. Lee, why don't you go ahead and take us into Deadpool versus Wolverine? Oh, and by the way, and before we dive in, remember there are going to be spoilers in here. So if you don't want to have your experience ruined, drop everything, go watch the movie first, best 2 hours of your life, then come back and watch this review. Otherwise, if you've already seen the movie or you just don't care and you just want to hear what we think, then let's dive right in. Sorry, Lee.
No, thank you.
Ahead.
That was a great lead-in because absolutely, I would not want to spoil anything for anybody. I know cameos and everything play a huge part into this, and some people might want that surprise. And I think actually I did a pretty good job going into this without knowing any of that type of stuff. So I feel pretty good with that. So first of all, I mean, it's the opening sequence to me just really hit it out of the ballpark with what I was expecting, and I'm glad that they didn't pull any punches with it, because really you have Deadpool literally digging the grave of Wolverine from the Logan movie, right? And for Wolverine's character, obviously he's very iconic. He is a huge fan favorite. And I feel bad for the Wolverine character because he's been in some really sad and pathetic standalone movies. except for Logan, which I think was a fantastic send-off. And I think that for the writers, when they're putting this scene together, I think they all kind of got a good joke out of this, because you're literally desecrating the guy's grave. And I think that was just such a fun thing to see. And I like how he incorporates the remains of the Wolverine character into the fight, by using parts of his animanium body in order to fight off against the TVA, all in the backdrop of the Backstreet Boys song playing. So I think it was a very good thing to see at the beginning. I think it was very tongue-in-cheek with the action, and I enjoyed that. What did you think about the opening to kind of get us started with this film?
I mean, it's very much on brand. What I thought was so fascinating is the fact that, and I don't know if you got the impression too, but I kind of got the feeling that they were taking the piss out of both Disney and
Absolutely.
Fox. You know,
Absolutely.
it's like this is them, you know, telling Fox, you know, hey, you know, thanks for everything, but up yours. And then they turn around to Marvel and say, hey, thanks for the paycheck, you know, fuck you. and they're just like going at it. I mean, but they did it in the best way possible. You know what I mean? It's just that you can't help but think to yourself, wow, like this is a not too subtle dig at the two studios that, you know, that created it and now owns it. And this is not gonna be the first time that we see these subtle digs, because we see it over and over again. But this is like the first the first time that we see, you know, Deadpool kind of, you know, tell the two studios, hey, you know what, this is what we think of, you know, of your studios and your, you know, business management skills. We're just gonna chuck it at it, and there's nothing you can do, because you know the people love it, and you just got to deal with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with you. And I think there is a sense of wanting to, I'm going to use this term very loosely, because obviously visually we get something different. But I do think that they're very much understood that this character was very beloved. Logan was a fantastic film. I really like that one. I think what they did was they knew that kind of going around this path would be very cheeky, and I think that's exactly what they wanted to do. So, but yeah, I thought it was a great opening, and then we.
But I mean, another thing too is that to your point, you know, during the time that Hugh Jackman played, you know, Logan, I mean, he had his ups and downs. I mean, there were some movies that were pretty good, and there were some movies where you kind of ask yourself, why are they even bothering with it?
Yes,
you kind of get the feeling that with Deadpool, it's like, you know, he's very much an iconic character, but there's the sort of mentality where he's saying, I'm not going to let you do to me what you did to Logan. You know, if we do any future movies, they're gonna be heavy hitters. They're gonna, you know, they're gonna be home runs. They're not gonna be, you know, box office duds where, you know, people are asking themselves, what the hell did I just see? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, because some of those, especially the standalone ones, were just flat out bad. Like the
Wolverine, right?
The Wolverine. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's just some huge duds there. So yes, I think that this was obviously very good, and I think hopefully a fun continuation for, well, a different version of Wolverine, right? Since it's not the one that we see in the Logan film. So I think they kind of maybe snuck out of it a little bit by at least acknowledging the fact that this is the same Wolverine that we saw at the end of Logan. So we kind of see, you know, Deadpool as we get into, I guess, the more of the story overall. And we see that for the most part, he's not really the same Deadpool, right? He's definitely seems like he's kind of hit a bottom. We have this kind of humorous sequence with Happy Hogan as he's trying to become an Avenger, and unsurprisingly, not accepted. So something where I think for him, we could see him down in the dirt, and we see that a lot of his attitude seems to be from his relationship with Vanessa, and we see that in this version, right, or what we're seeing, we see that him and Vanessa have broken up, and I don't know about you, but I kind like the story overall, right, is very weak, right? And I think that the big issue that I had with the story was a lot of this seems to be revolving around Vanessa once again, right? In the first one, we kind of have, him, getting to meet Vanessa, her getting captured, and subsequently saving her, and I really like that, right? And then the second one, we kind of played up once again because now Vanessa gets killed, and then obviously we have some time travel, multiverse shenanigans at the end of it, where she's, I guess, kind of brought back to life, so to speak. And then in the third one, it feels like we're back to now they're broken up, and I just didn't enjoy that. How did you feel about the Deadpool and Vanessa relationship and it being once again kind of the focal point of the story?
I mean, I don't have that many complaints about the movie, but I do feel like that one particular plot line could have been omitted, really, because
Yes.
I felt like it was successfully concluded in the second Deadpool movie, so I don't really know why they had to bring that back up.
Yeah.
And you really don't find out why they broke up until later on. And the reason why is it's a bit weird, to be honest with you. But
Yes.
I'm sure you're going to touch on that later.
Sure, yeah, and I think that's the other thing that I also thought was interesting was, I mean, I know you're trying to give a character arc to him by having him go through this. It just feels very much crammed into a story that didn't really need it, especially because as we meet Wolverine, he has plenty of, I think, character story to go through, so I don't know how much that was needed, but yeah, so we have Deadpool kind of down the dumps, and he's celebrating his birthday. And the TVA show up, kind of a different variation that we've seen in Loki. So we have the TV show up, and this is where we meet Mr. Paradox, who I guess would be kind of a secondary villain, so to speak. And he's, interested in Deadpool because he wants Deadpool to kind of help the quote-unquote sacred timeline. And we find out that Deadpool's current universe is going to be destroyed because of they describe as the anchor being is now dead, which is the character of Wolverine from Logan, ironically enough. Now, if you think about it too much, you kind of like, that's weird. Like, this anchor being, he's not been around for too long, so why is he the anchor being in this universe? Like, is he really the most important character within this universe? That is where everything kind of revolves around. I don't know.
You kind of get the feeling that it's a bit of a rush job on the writers' end, because they're like, oh shit, how can we incorporate all this Fox stuff into the MCU? Oh, I know. You remember in WandaVision where they were talking about Nexus beings? Wait for it. How about anchor beings? Ah.
Yep, exactly. They're like, okay, we got to get Wolverine in here somehow, so let's just talk him up and make him this whole big thing. Which, like I said, kind of goes to the story not being as strong. But
I mean, it's not bad. I mean, it's not a bad move. It's just it's a bit rushed and a bit lazy, but it's not a bad move overall.
Sure, right. So I think overall, if you're going to see a Deadpool film, you're not really going for this, terribly complex or engaging story, which I think, it has its highs, but definitely has a lot of things not going super well for it. And so Deadpool takes this as a sign that, hey, I want to save my universe, right? That's about to be destroyed. So the best way to go about doing this is I just need to find a new Wolverine. And this is where we go through our, I guess, loads of different Wolverine variants until we find the, I guess, the worst version of Wolverine. And there's quite a bit of different Wolverines out there. Is there any particular variant of Wolverine that caught your eye by chance?
I'm gonna say Cavill, Wolverine.
It's hard to argue with that one.
I mean, because seriously, because a lot of people have been throwing his name out, for years and years, saying, if they were to introduce Wolverine into the MCU, who would it be? It's kind of like with John Krasinski playing Mr. Fantastic. It's like he would seem like the only actor who could who could play Wolverine, and in a way, I was gratified to see that, because you kind of get a sneak peek as to how he would portray the character without having to feel too bad as to whether or not you would get burned by the choice. It's kind of like doing a test drive for a car, really. I guess if I had to pick a second one, it would be the little Little Wolverine, because that one's the comic book accurate one. Because in the comics, he's like 5'3".
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I guess for all those people that are like, "Oh man, Wolverine's way too tall," well, we got the mini version of Wolverine that was in there. I know another big one that was circulating that I think a lot of people were thinking about was Jesus, the Harry Potter guy?
Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah, Daniel Radcliffe, right? Thank you.
I'm so glad they didn't put that in there. Like
there was a lot of smoke around him being like a variant, or at least having a bigger role. And as we see, didn't pop up at all in the movie, but was one of those that are out there. But yeah, I would definitely agree with you that Cavill was a really cool thing to see, because I think he is, to your point, right, a fan favorite that a lot of people were looking at to fill in Wolverine's shoes or yellow bodysuit, depending on what you're looking for. So, but yeah, so using the temp pad that they have, they Deadpool and the shittiest version of Wolverine go back, and well, it looks like Mr. Paradox didn't really agree with Deadpool's logic, and they get sent to the void.
But to be fair,
Yeah.
Lee, you're forgetting a very crucial point. You're forgetting that Paradox basically said we've got to mercy kill, or we got to euthanize your timeline in order to save the multiverse.
Yes.
And Deadpool, well, let's just say Deadpool decided, sticks and stones were a better solution than words.
Yes. Yep. So he's like, well, obviously not exactly going as intended. So they get sent to the void, right? So that's where we end up going for a good chunk here of most of the second act is all in the void. And I really love that it opens with the 21st century or 20th Century Fox logo in the background.
I love that too.
Yeah, that was fantastic to see, especially because when you start to see all the characters show up, it becomes more and more transparent why that's there, right? Because really, the void is pretty much just. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But I was gonna say, but back to the point I made earlier. I mean, it's just them taking the piss out of everybody. So
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
I mean, like, it just works. Like when when they do it in this movie, it totally works.
Yes. Yeah, and I did like that, because the void is just pretty much all these previous heroes that we see from old 20th Century Fox films, and I thought that was great. I thought that was really funny, because it's pretty much like the kind of in the afterlife, so to speak, where we got all these pretty much like characters that have been gone for a very long time, right? And we'll get to that. I won't spoil any of them right now, but some of these characters been out of the spotlight for a good 2+ decades.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, like, if you thought all the variants of Loki were interesting, just wait until you see what happens when Deadpool and Wolverine encounter the rejects from the multiverse.
Yes, that is very true. So now that we're in the void, we get a chance to kind of see some of what's going to happen. And I think the first cameo that popped up, and this one was great to me, was the Chris Evans cameo. I thought it was,
but not in the role that you think, ladies and gentlemen, not in the role that you think.
No, not at all, right? So we see Chris Evans show up, and I love the fact that they really play up to the idea of him being Captain America. Got the I think like he's got some kind of like tattered clothes on, and you can see some red and blue and white. So you kind of were like, oh, that could be it. And then when Sabretooth and the gang show up, and just to see him go like flame on and become the Human Torch was absolutely fantastic. I thought that was great. My only complaint was I really wished that they played up him as Captain America a little bit more, right? I would have liked to see him like bearing the shield, just to kind of further that point home. But I think that was great.
I was going to say,
cameo.
Well, I was going to say, I think even if he didn't have the shield, I mean, because he has been in the void for quite a while, so I think what would have been nice was if was if he found like a Captain America uniform, right? And he was like walking around wearing it, and Deadpool's like, "Oh my God, you're Captain America!" And he's like, "Oh no, I just found this off. I just took this off a dead guy." You know?
Yeah, there's
and,
yeah,
and then when he flames on, like he burns the costume off, and Deadpool's like, "Oh man, I was just starting to really fantasize about him in that suit." I was also disappointed that he didn't like kind of like look at his butt and just think, "Wow, that really is America's ass." Like I thought that would have been a great dig right there.
Yeah, there
and
was
then he would have been like, yeah, and then Johnny would have looked at him and been like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Nope, it's true. There was definitely some opportunities there where I think they had maybe some other things they could have done for dialogue that would have
they totally missed
more
it.
enjoyable.
But yeah, they totally. I mean, if nothing else, Deadpool should have at least made a crack about his ass. Like,
yes, that's true. Yes, there was definitely some opportunity there to have a few more jokes, because I think that, for everybody, we think about him obviously as a lot more of Captain America, not as much as, the Human Torch from I would say a fairly lackluster Fantastic Four franchise.
But you have to, but to be fair,
multiple times.
But to be fair, you have to be of a certain age group to have seen and remembered that. I mean, those who are younger than 30 will probably have no idea that he was the
Very
Human
true.
Torch. So
yeah, very, very true. Great point. So yeah, and then the other one that we got that I thought was kind of funny, because they really play up this fight that's going to happen is between Wolverine and Sabretooth, right? So obviously, these are two characters that are, constantly butting heads throughout their comic book runs, and everyone was like really wanting to see a big epic fight, and I like how anticlimactic the fight is. It's like they really talk it up just to be a whole lot of nothing. How did you feel about the really pathetically short Sabretooth fight?
I mean, I'll say this: I am glad they got the original actor from the first X-Men movie to play him. I feel like they should have gotten Liev Schreiber instead. I do
really like Liev Schreiber, yeah.
I mean, because think about it, like there was more chemistry between him and Liev Schreiber than the first X-Men movie, because obviously they're in more scenes together, and they're also butting heads. I felt like that would have been a far more interesting scene if we saw the Liev Schreiber variant come up and been like, "Oh, it's you. Well, how are you going to save yourself this time? You're going to go to the bar again," or some dig about how else he failed his universe.
Yes.
Yes. Because I felt like the Liev Schreiber variant, would have done more to kind of like push his buttons, whereas the Sabretooth that we saw in this movie, he was just a purely physical character. And maybe that's all they were going for, because there's only so much screen time you can have. But Absolutely. I felt like if you had that, even if he just appeared for a brief, a few brief seconds, if he just said something that kind of dig at him, I think that would have been perfect.
Gotcha.
But again, missed opportunities,
Yeah, so. Yeah, and I think thinking back to the original X-Men trilogy that was out there, right? That was very much Sabretooth's character was just purely the physical presence, like you said. So I guess they were really banking on that. But I do agree with you. I think it would have been nicer, or at least something else they could have added was this different variation of Sabretooth in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we kind of get this nice sequence where we kind of see this very quick fight, and it ends very quickly, and they get taken to, I guess, our main villain of it, which is the character Cassandra Nova, who is Professor Xavier's twin sister, that, from my understanding, Professor Xavier kind of defeated her in the womb.
So
sent her to the void after that.
Yeah, so here's my question. So, so as you said in the comics, Charles Xavier, when he's still in utero, he senses Cassandra's evil, so he basically kills her psychically so she can never be born. But which yeah, all right. I mean, it's Professor Xavier; he can do whatever he wants. What I don't understand is if she was killed in utero, how the hell does she end up being a fully formed adult? In the void. Like how the hell does that even happen? I mean, because at least with Sylvia it makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. Like she gets kidnapped as a kid and she's on the run, and then she grows up on the run and has to learn things for herself. But how the hell does Cassandra even know how to do half of this shit if she was never even born to begin with?
Fair, right? And I think, we could chalk that up, and I would chalk it up to, it's a multiverse, right? So there's some variation where maybe Cassandra Nova ended up killing Xavier instead, and she became the prominent figure in that universe. And I do like the fact that because they're twins, she's also bald.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I mean, that's fine. Like, I guess we're going with that. I don't know. Would it be funnier? Was it funnier the fact that she was bald, or would it have been funnier if she had crazy hair? I don't know. But I did think it was, like I said, amusing when I saw her come out bald. I'm like, okay, I guess because one's bald, the other one has to be bald. But hey, fine, whatever. And
I kind of like the whole Mad Max vibe around that area.
Yes,
Did you
that's true.
Like, I mean, I was like, you know what? Like, I know they had a few missed opportunities, but I'm glad they went with the Mad Max vibe for that. Like,
Yes.
at least they did good on that part.
Yes, and I do like how the home base too is Ant-Man's corpse. Very amusing thing to have. So we find out that for Cassandra, she works with the TVA, and she's there to kind of deal with. She's pretty much the queen/king of the void, and she's pretty much over it. And we kind of get I guess the rest of the cameos start to show up because the giant entity Goliath comes in. And both Deadpool and Wolverine are able to escape their demise, so to speak. And then we have the most interesting fight sequence that happens in a Honda Odyssey. And I think this one really stuck out to me. So there's kind of the initial battle that happens, and I thought that was fine. But I think the next fight where they're fighting in the van, I think was really interesting, right? I like kind of all the action and just kind of just seeing them work in this really confined environment to have this really brutal fight sequence where pretty much they fight for hours to the point that both of them lose consciousness. So I thought it was great. And, as we kind of go through here, this is where we start to see more variations of stuff. We meet Nice Pool, right? And then we also meet another star of it, Dogpool, right? AKA Mary Poppins. So that's how they actually get the van that they're traveling in, is through this group. And we find out that there's, more Deadpool variants that we don't really see at this time. It's just kind of a little placeholder for later. So I like how they at least set it up for what's going to happen in the future. And this is where, as I said, we kind of meet some more of our cameos. And these are all from previous Fox superhero films. So we see Elektra, we see Blade, both played by their Jennifer Garner and the Wesley Snipes, respectively. And then I also like how we have Gambit played by Channing Tatum, where if you kind of are, I guess, well versed with some of the stuff out there. Originally, there was supposed to be a Gambit film. It was definitely one of those things that was in pre-production or they were working on it. And Channing Tatum was cast for that role of Gambit, but that movie never got to see the light of day. So kind of a nice little, wink to the audience with Channing Tatum being Gambit in this. And then we also have X-23 from presumably the Logan franchise shows up as well. And I thought that this was great, right? Especially for Wesley Snipes. Like, I really like the original Blade movie. I thought that was great. So it was really cool to see him. And yeah, how did you think about this cast of cameos, right? Because we got a kind of a big group here that plays a big factor in our fight to escape the void.
I think what would have made it funnier is if they got Ben Affleck back as Daredevil.
No, that's true. Yep, there definitely was a few more opportunities to maybe stick a few more in there. I did kind of like I said, I did like it. I thought for Channing Tatum as Gambit, I thought he talked too much, right? I think for me, the whole joke was Channing Tatum doing a terrible impression of someone from the Bayou, so to speak. And he just kind of does this like really awful accent. Even Deadpool makes a joke about it. I wish he kind of talked less, Or I thought it'd been really funny if he just barely talks, and then maybe during a big moment he has this huge speech, but no one can understand what he's saying because his accent is so awkward. I just thought that was maybe something they could have done a little bit different. I thought the whole accent gag went on maybe a little bit too long, but overall was enjoyable to see. So we have, kind of all these characters meeting up, and they realize, like, hey, in order to get out of here, we got to defeat Cassandra Nova. So we have Wolverine's character that kind of opens up with X-23, and we find out more about the fact that he was pretty much, he feels responsible for all the X-Men being killed in his timeline because he was kind of left the situation, and then when he came back found them all dead. So he absolutely has a lot of skeletons in the closet, so to speak. And we get this kind of generic, like, let's talk them up type of thing to get Wolverine involved with the fight. And we kind of get this fun sequence where we got all these characters. So you got Deadpool and Wolverine, obviously, Elektra, Blade, Gambit, and then the X-23 character, and they all come together to help fight against Nova. And it's pretty cool, right? I definitely like to see Gambit being able to be Gambit on the screen, right? And I think being able to see him kind of in this cool live action sequence was really cool to see. I definitely question how much these characters would stay alive, especially like Elektra, who somehow survives through the whole sequence. I was kind of half expecting them to be like, no, like some of these characters are going to die really quick. And I was kind of expecting that, but they didn't do that. But we kind of have this, kind of fight sequence, and we find out that Cassandra Nova has the little device from Doctor Strange that creates portals. So they end up actually kind of teaming up with Cassandra Nova to leave the void. And they get brought to Deadpool's universe, where we have the final act. So
wait, hold on. You're
go ahead. I was gonna let you talk there, so go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say you forgot the part where Pyro actually turns out to be a sleeper agent for Paradox, and he shoots Cassandra Nova. Correct.
Yes. So yes, there are some other things that kind of happen for that, but yes, absolutely. So we see Pyro once again from that original X-Men timeline, played by the same guy. So he's in it, as long as I think we got Toad in it, right? So Toad, one of the villains over there,
and Juggernaut. Don't forget Juggernaut.
Yes, Juggernaut, played by someone totally not Juggernaut.
Yeah, not Vinnie Jones.
Yeah, not Vinnie Jones. Thank you. Who else was in that cameo group? I can't. I know that there was a few, but like I said, I'm sure if you pause and you'll see a lot more cameos that they throw in there. But yes, in essence, they go back to Deadpool's universe, where they want to save his timeline from being destroyed with this device called the Time Ripper. So we have, let's see here. So we got the Time Ripper, so they're in the universe. So we have a bunch of the Deadpool variants that come in to do this really long fight sequence, right? So we got Deadpool, Wolverine, Nicepool is there very briefly for, I guess, the good guy side. And then we have all of them fighting up against all these other Deadpool variants. And, I enjoyed it, right? They kind of do this like little one take as far as the fight sequence goes, and kind of go through like a bus that's there, and I really like at the end of the sequence, like they all start to regenerate, and it's kind of funny when you think about it. It's like, oh yeah, like they did all this awesome stuff, they kicked all this ass, but they're all just going to regenerate anyways. So obviously I would question why some of them regenerate so much slower than others, but I thought that was really funny to see it all happen. And luckily we have the hero Peter, right, shows up in order to take care of the variants. And I like how big of a character Peter is, for literally he's in every timeline, and every Deadpool loves their Peter. So I thought that was quite enjoyable. So what did you think about that big old fight sequence with Deadpool versus 100+ variants there?
I mean, it very much has an Avengers Endgame vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you have the portals open and you see all these like people coming out of the portal. Like it definitely reminds you of the last battle scene. But what I also thought was interesting is the fact that you get several voice cameos too, because Lady Pool is voiced by none other than Blake Lively, who happens to be the wife of Ryan Reynolds. And then I think Cowboy Deadpool is voiced by Nathan Fillion, who's a favorite of ours.
Yes.
There was one other like well-known actor who voiced a character, but I can't remember who it is at the moment.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll find out too that there's probably more we don't know of. I know Tom Holland's brother, I believe, played one of the variants. I don't remember or recall if he
it wasn't Kidpool, was it?
I don't remember. Don't quote. I remember seeing a blurb about it, but I don't recall who it was. It might have been Kidpool, might have not. I don't know for that for a fact.
Okay.
But I know he was a part of it. So yeah, I'm sure that there are quite a bit of voiceover cameos, so to speak, that was in there, along with the levitating head Deadpool, which
Deadpool.
Don't know anything about that character, but hey, it was definitely something unique. So, now that Peter's come to save the day, we need to have Deadpool and Wolverine. They need to stop Cassandra Nova, who's going to use the Time Ripper to, destroy all universes, because, that's what it feels like we have to do now. It's not just one reality that's in jeopardy. It's everything's in jeopardy now. And they find out that the only way that they're going to be able to destroy the Time Ripper and defeat Cassandra Nova is they need to, be a bridge between like antimatter and matter, or, they do some scientific mumbo jumbo there. But pretty much someone has to sacrifice themselves in order to do it.
Which by the way is a reference to Star Trek, the Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, yes. There's definitely a lot of fun things that they do with that, and I do like the fact that they kind of play this back and forth, and it kind of reminds me of when in the Avengers, right, when you have Hawkeye and Black Widow, and they're kind of like trying to fight to see who dies type of thing. I kind of like how they do this a little bit here, where you think that Wolverine's like, hey, I really need this. I need to be the one that does this to save humanity, because, I feel like this is my redemption arc. And Deadpool's like, sorry, you're not going to do it. So he ends up going in there to sacrifice himself, just to realize that, what, this ain't going to work. I'm not going to be able to do it. But luckily, Wolverine shows up, and we have this really funny sequence where, Wolverine kind of starts to like lose his shirt and everything, and you see Deadpool kind of eyeballing a shirtless Wolverine, which, from what I understand, was 100% Hugh Jackman, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, give the guy some props, right? The guy's in his 50s, looks really damn good for that role. But according to everybody, that's 100% him. So, but yeah, so we kind of have this nice moment where, Deadpool and Wolverine both, quote unquote, sacrifice themselves to save all the timelines. And because of it, we kind of get this ending. But lo and behold, and probably not a surprise to anybody, both Deadpool and Wolverine survive. So both of them have their sacrifices, and well, sacrifices is maybe a different word for it, because they're both okay. And there's kind of this like little deal that gets made to kind of maybe bring them all together. And the film ultimately ends with Deadpool being with, his friends and family that are close to him. And they kind of hint at he's done all this for Vanessa, which we kind of know from out through the whole story. And we see that Vanessa and him are maybe rekindling something there at the very end, and that's how it ultimately concludes. There's also the shawarma scene, which I guess I'll go ahead and mention, because that was a huge gag at the end of one of the Avengers films. So, but yeah, that was the conclusion, and yeah. So, Luca, tell what you think about it overall.
I mean, I really, really enjoyed it. I will say this, though. I was really, really hoping that this would be the opportunity for Deadpool to enter the MCU, i.e. the Sacred Timeline. What I was really expecting or hoping from the plot anyway would be that, his home universe, dies, but he finds a way to save it, but it gets merged into his, into the Marvel timeline. So he sort of gets incorporated into the world of the Avengers, and the X-Men get incorporated into the to Earth 616 and all that stuff. So when he goes back to his own timeline and that's it, I kind of felt like, well, I do feel a bit let down because I was hoping there would be something more to that. Um, but overall, I really really enjoyed it. Especially loved all the callbacks. That I was gonna say that one scene where they're bridging between matter and antimatter, where they're all glowing. That's a nod to the first Guardians of the
Yes.
Galaxy,
Mhm.
where they all touch one of the Infinity Stones, and they're all holding each other's hands while they're
Mhm.
trying to channel its energy. So I kind of like that nod too, because it's not just a nod to the Avengers films; it's a nod to all the other films in the
Yep.
Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty much that was like my main um gripe with it, is the fact that they should have found a way to incorporate Deadpool into this new timeline, into this new reality, as it were. But
That's fair. I guess. Yeah.
I'm sure they'll find another way to bring that about. They are talking about Avengers Secret Wars, so maybe there'll be the opportunity to bring that dream into realization, but who knows?
Yeah, and to your point, I'm glad you brought up that last point, right? Because I feel like now that we have all the multiverses, I don't think there's a lot that you have to do to bring Deadpool into whatever reality you want to at this stage. But you did bring that up, so I totally agree with you on that. And I think overall, right, like if you're interested in the cameos, they were a ton of fun. I know some people feel like maybe it was a little bit too much. I didn't really feel that myself personally. I do think that there's quite a bit. But I think that kind of goes with everything that we've seen so far, so it didn't bother me a whole lot. I definitely got some good laughs. Being able to see Hugh Jackman again as Wolverine was, great. I know we all kind of think about Logan and think about his sacrifice and everything, which was very poignant and well done. But I feel like at least with this version of the Wolverine, it certainly did it justice. So I was glad that they didn't, kind of shit all over Wolverine in a movie where you're bringing him back from the dead, so to speak. So I really like that. As I said, my only real gripe with this overall was the story, which I would say, from my personal take, was, really lackluster. There wasn't a whole lot going on with it overall. I think that, having Vanessa kind of be once again the focal point of another of the Deadpool films is just a little bit awkward to me. I get why you want to have it be that way, but it just feels like they have less and less creative ways to have her be a part of the story. And it just is kind of obnoxious for that. But I don't think many people going to see Deadpool are there to see like this really thought-provoking story. So I think if you're there for the laughs and you're there to just have a good time, I think they absolutely knocked it out of the park. So I guess, Luca, what is your final grade?
I'd probably give it a 4.7 out of 5.
Ooh.
I mean, this is one of the few films of 2024 that I really really enjoyed. And I mean, if you don't really put your thinking cap on for too long, this is a movie that you can definitely enjoy. I mean, like I said, they've been talking it up for months since they've acquired property rights to Fox, 20th Century Fox, about how they're going to incorporate the X-Men into the MCU. And I was hoping this would be the opportunity, but I felt like this was a huge missed opportunity for them. I mean, maybe it's because they spoke with the higher ups at Marvel and they were told, hey, don't do this yet. This we want to kind of whet everybody's appetite first before we actually do a proper integration of all the universes. But I felt like for for what it was trying to do, I felt like kind of fell short. But other than that, I mean, you could tell everybody had fun. I mean,
Yeah.
at the end, you felt like Chris Evans was just enjoying himself, just like running his mouth. I'm like, you know what? I bet this is what he really, really, really wanted to do with Johnny Storm, but he didn't get the opportunity to do it.
Yes. And obviously for Captain America, very much a very stoic figure. So not
playing it
exactly
straight, basically.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So not too many options there. So for me, I would say I would give this a 4.3 claws out of 5. I think, like I said, it was really fun. I really like to see it. I think that there was probably a few opportunities to do something different. I do agree with you that maybe there was a few more opportunities to help implant a few other like kind of like story seeds out there, because obviously this was a huge thing for Marvel this year, being its I think I think there's technically 2, right? Because I think there's another Marvel film that comes out in November. It obviously was a very big thing for Marvel, and I think that with it, the Marvel downward trajectory that it's been, along with the fact that this has been in production limbo for some time, I'm surprised at the quality of work that came out of it. Even if I felt the story was pretty much its biggest fault, which, as I said, for something that's more based upon comedy and probably a little bit more on the fan service side of things, the story wasn't exactly something that I was fully focused on.
Don't forget. Also, I mean, ever since they acquired the rights to 20th Century Fox, that's been the question on everybody's mind: is how are they going to bring the X-Men into the MCU? So so you kind of get the feeling, the reason why they've been taking so long with getting this movie out there is because they're trying to find the best way to do it, and. And when you sit down to watch, the intro, you're hoping, oh boy, I can't wait to see Deadpool be in the MCU proper. And then when you get to the end, you're like, well, what the hell was that all about? I will say this though, I know you have an issue with Vanessa being in this movie, but it could have been worse. They could have brought Weasel back.
That's true. And don't get me wrong, I have no problem with Vanessa. I really like her. I just wish that Deadpool's actions weren't always revolved around something to do with her. So, and I think it's just this third one was the one I noticed it the most, just because it didn't feel as warranted as, in the first one, where it's a lot about their blossom relationship. The second one, him dealing with the grief of her death. This just felt very anticlimactic compared to how she's been utilized in the past. So, that's everything for me. So
let me ask you this. So out of the 2 characters, which one do you think performed best? Was it Deadpool or Wolverine?
Oh, that's a hard one. I'm gonna say Wolverine, right? And I think the only reason I say Wolverine is because I feel like we've pretty much discarded the idea of Hugh Jackman being Wolverine anymore. I think I looked at Logan, and I'm sure almost everyone looked at Logan as being his swan song. So to have him don the attire once again, I think that just clicked in my little brain, right? That like, oh, this is so cool to see him again. So I think maybe just fanboyism is maybe getting the best of me. But I think Hugh Jackman's performance is great. And that's nothing at all against Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool. Like, he has once again a great showing. It's just that I think for myself, it was hard, like years ago, would not imagine seeing Hugh Jackman be Wolverine again. To see him on screen, I think just kind of blocks all my thinking away from anything else other than him being the better, the better job this time around.
Because Hugh Jackman even said, like, after Logan, was released in theaters, I think he said, he was done playing Wolverine. He was hanging up the claws, so to speak.
Yeah, totally agree.
I'm gonna have to say Wolverine also, just because of the fact that Hugh Jackman, when you think there's nothing left in the tank for him, he brings us more, and we're left wanting more. Like, come on, man, tell us more about this Wolverine. And what's great is the fact that he's not playing the Logan that we're familiar with, the Logan that we've seen on screen for 20 or so years. He's playing a completely different version of the character, but he's still this character that we're familiar with, even if he's not the Logan from the Singer verse, as it were. And
just like in the movie, they're probably gonna have him play till he's 90 years old, just like the movie said.
Exactly. And hey, I mean, I would have no problem with that. I mean, because we've seen Samuel L. Jackson get de-aged in Captain Marvel. I could probably do the same thing in whatever, I guess, Secret Wars, whenever that's supposed to come out in 2 years, I think.
Wolverine in a nursing home.
So speaking of which, so Lee, when we went to go see Deadpool and Wolverine last Saturday, San Diego Comic-Con was in full swing, and one of the one of the big news obviously is Kevin Feige and Hall H making his announcements for the next for the next phase in the MCU, which isn't really new because he's been doing that for 10 plus years. But we did get some new developments. We did finally get to meet the cast of the Fantastic Four, and they started shooting this week in England. But we also got something that was very new and a bit unexpected. And we talked.
I think I know what you're getting at.
So let me go ahead and just get this out of the way first. So first and foremost,
Nice hat block, Luca.
Yeah. So can I just say first of all, this came out of left field. This came out of left field for me because I first of all I went to go take a brief nap because we did enjoy some pretty high quality Vietnamese food after the movie. But when I woke up from my nap, I looked at my feed and I happened to see this video here, and I was a bit confused. And at first I thought this has got to be a joke, and I emailed you a link to the video. But then I came to realize, they aren't trolling us. This is actually a thing. So let's take a look and see what we've got here.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
About a Marvel shocker heard across the multiverse.
So
new mask, same task.
So no, right?
5 years
So
after Robert Downey Jr.'s iconic superhero Iron Man met his end in Avengers Endgame, the Oscar winner will don a different mask to play the ultimate bad guy, Dr. Doom, in the next 2 Avengers films.
What can I tell you? I like playing complicated characters.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this decision at all. I don't really get it.
I don't get it. Are you a baddie now?
Oh, well, I guess thank you, Gwyneth Paltrow, for echoing what I was just saying.
Mystery. And the Flying Fantastic Car at Comic-Con's Hall H helped to welcome the cast of the super hype Fantastic.
Oh, here's your girl, Lee. Here's your girl.
To be able to share any of this with
the
world.
Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, and Eben Moss Bachrach blown away by the enthusiasm.
Hey, you know what's ironic? We were just talking about the bear earlier, right? Remember we're talking about the bear?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Kind of throwing down the gauntlet. It's a nice sort of challenge.
Only unexpected connection there, but there we go.
Best time ever.
82 years old and not slowing down a bit. Harrison Ford kept it real, revealing why he joined the upcoming Captain America Brave New World.
You may be Captain America.
All right, so
you're not Steve Rogers.
So we discussed this briefly before recording, but do you feel this is a move of desperation on Marvel's part to bring back RDJ?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and say this now. Now, this is nothing against RDJ, right? I think obviously he's, gone through some really highs and lows in his life. And I think his casting for Iron Man was just incredible, right? I think he plays that character so well. I feel like people throw around like, hey, I couldn't imagine another actor playing this, character X as good as they do. And I feel like people throw that on really, really loosely. But for me, the way that Robert Downey Jr. plays Iron Man, to me, is the one that I always feel like it's hard to envision anybody else playing that character.
I mean, he was pretty much playing himself, if you think about it.
Yeah, exactly, right? And I think that's why he has such a high level of comfortability with it, is because, it's easy to carry that persona into your acting when you don't have to do a whole lot of acting for it. But yeah, I think that I just really enjoyed the character. I think it was, a really great performance. And I think people were obviously bummed that he gave up his life to save everybody, right? I think that definitely was a hard send off for people to accept. So to see him in this role feels very forced. I think that it's a very cheap way to just inject Robert Downey Jr. back into the universe. I know that there might be some, comic book leanings where there's, the whole Doctor Doom and Iron Man and they having some connection. I'm sure there's some comic book and some universe that's been done over the past, century that's a part of that. But I think regardless of what you kind of throw out there, it just feels very forced to have him playing that character. It just, to me, just feels wrong to have it be like that. And it feels 100% that they made that choice because people like Iron Man. So now, we can't, maybe we'll bring back Iron Man somehow, or maybe we'll just bring back RDJ and he'll just be like Iron Man, but we'll just have him be Doctor Doom instead. So I didn't really like it. I thought it was a very forced choice. I think that there was a lot of different things out there. So yeah, I'm not a fan of it. It just feels like cheap way to bring back a character that we've already seen before.
But I mean, if you think about it, at the beginning of what was it, Phase 4, Phase 5, they were basically saying, well, the first part of of the saga was Thanos, right? It was all about Thanos and in the Infinity Stones and assembling them and trying to wipe out the universe. So they pretty much said, well, the next villain for the next few phases is going to be Kang the Conqueror, and it all started with Loki, where they kind of laid the foundations with, the next baddie is going to be Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror. And they ran with that for a few movies and TV shows up until, what was it, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And they were pretty much saying, yeah, he's going to be the next film that the Avengers will have to face. So when Jonathan Majors got into a legal kerfuffle over domestic violence dispute, and he was dismissed by Marvel, I kind of got the sense that they were still going to stick with Kang because he was he was marketed as the level, as the villain who's sort of on the level or beyond the level of Thanos. Like, who's worse than Thanos? Well, someone who can control and manipulate time, which would be Kang, right? So I thought, well, they're probably going to have to, look at getting another actor. They would still keep all of the storylines that they built in Loki and all the other movies and TV shows, but just go with a different actor, but still keep the same villain. So, so going back to my point from earlier, when they announced RDJ as Doctor Doom, and he would be the villain of the next 2 Avengers movies, this came as a huge shock because, because then it calls into question, well, what the hell were all the other movies about then? Because if you think about it, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania really didn't add much, apart from the fact that you learned a little bit more about who the Kang the Conqueror was, and you kind of get the hint that his next mission is to enter the sacred timeline and wipe out that universe's Avengers, because he's already wiped out Avengers in other universes, right? So so now that you introduce Doctor Doom into the equation, and he's supposedly going to be the new baddie who replaces Kang, it kind of makes you wonder, well, what was the purpose of Loki and all that other stuff then, right?
Yeah, because continuity wise, I think everything's kind of scrambled at this stage.
It's in the shitter, basically.
Yes.
because now you've got nothing. I mean, sure, you've got the multiverse, but the multiverse itself got really old, and we've mentioned this time and time again. I mean, we've talked about this when we reviewed The Flash, when we reviewed Secret Invasion, all that stuff. I mean, we've said time and time again, the multiverse is such an easy an easy thing to play with, but it's also easy to mess things up. So so now Marvel is finding itself up shit creek without a paddle, because they built up a villain who is no longer going to be the villain because of personal issues, and they've talked up a multiverse which really isn't going anywhere, right? Because like we mentioned a few minutes ago about Deadpool, I mean, they had the opportunity to take all these disparate elements from different franchises and different studios and bring them together under one banner, but they failed. So now you've got to ask yourself, well, if they're going to continue with the multiverse, they've got to do something new with it, because what they've been doing for the past 5 years now, it's not going anywhere. It's going around in circles. And the villain who was supposed to be the big baddie who would represent a threat to the multiverse, he's he's not a threat to you anymore because apparently he's subject to the laws of man. So now you've got to bring in a new villain, and furthermore, you've got to bring in an actor who, let's face it, I don't think may be able to pull off being Doctor Doom unless they decide to make Doctor Doom very, very much like Tony Stark.
True. And you brought up a great point, right? Like, we're dealing so much with multiverses and everything. Like, if you really wanted to have Kang, I don't know why you just don't recast him. Like, I think it's so easy just to write off, like, oh, why do you look different? Oh, something.
Because he's a variant.
Yeah, like I'm from a different universe.
Because they've already done this in Loki. It's not hard, dude.
Yeah, and I think another thing that kind of got to me, right, and I think as you're talking about a great point about this is, we bring up Kang for his power, right, his ability to manipulate time. So he's got these abilities. The problem that I have, right, is when I look at Doctor Doom, I don't see him being nearly as powerful as either of these previous, villains, right? So
I mean, Doom is a human being. I mean, granted, he's smart, but he is probably like 10 rungs below Thanos. I mean, he's 10 rungs below Magneto, for God's sakes.
Yeah. I mean, not everything is going to always be like, you can't always one up everything because it feels like there's never good enough stakes at a certain stage. So, like, I understand that. But yeah, it's really weird that you went with this mindset that you want Kang, who's going to be this, very strong, Thanos level type of supervillain, and then you replace him with Doctor Doom, who is clearly not in the same sphere of power that we've seen previously. So but I mean, curious to see what they want to do with that.
But here's my issue: it's the fact that they kept talking up Kang as if he were supposed to be the next, next big baddie. So it's on Marvel. So it's on Marvel because they're the ones who kept saying over and over again, "Oh yeah, Kang's going to be the next villain. He's going to be the next baddie. He's going to be the next threat that the Avengers will need to take 2 movies to defeat, like Thanos." But then they do this, and it's like, well, clearly this is a reflection of what's going on behind the scenes because. Because now it's showing, Marvel is just they show their hand basically, right? Like had they not done that reveal at Comic-Con, we could have gone on thinking, oh, they've got something, something up their sleeve. We don't know what it is, but we're willing to wait a few years to be surprised, at movie theaters. But now that they've showed their hand, it's like, well, you've been bluffing this entire time, dude. I mean, you've pretty much sold us. I mean, you sold us on a Mustang, right? And we end up with a Honda Odyssey. Sorry, I was just looking for a way to incorporate that joke in there.
Very topical. I like that.
But you get my point because this entire time they kept saying, well, this is what we're selling you guys. I mean, if you watch episodes this and this of this show, and if you pay attention to the post-credit scene of these movies, you'll see where we're going at here. And then to throw this, from left field, it's like, this is bait and switch, dude. I mean, this is worse than bait and switch. This is an act of desperation. This is a Hail Mary pass on your end, and it's not going to go well for you because as much as we love RDJ, I mean, the guy can play, pretty interesting characters. I mean, we did a review of Oppenheimer where we talked about how he played, he did a really good job playing Strauss.
Yes.
But I mean, playing a skeezy senator is not really a good prerequisite to playing, the leader of a country with the resources to, possibly take over the world,
Yeah, they did a lot of course correction here, and it'll be interesting how they try to, I guess, retcon / insert this into the current stream of stuff that they have out there, because they definitely went with a very, very different direction with, I think, overall, I don't want to call him like a weaker villain, because I never liked King as far as the villains go, so I was very indifferent to him anyways. And I'm sure a lot of people also reiterated that they weren't huge fans of Kang. So I think in Marvel's mind, right, it's like, well, people didn't really like him. We have the whole thing with Jonathan Majors that's going to be an issue. So, I think for them, they're like, oh, well, we'll bring back Doctor Doom, right? Like, we have to get the Fantastic Four involved, and, well, who we want to play him? Well, everyone liked that Iron Man guy. So I guess we'll just throw his character in there. So But yeah, it does feel very cheap, and I totally agree with you that they have clearly gone a different direction, and now they have to figure out how they're going to, I guess, play up Doctor Doom to make him be a character that people want to be invested with. So we'll see what happens. But I think when it comes to the Avengers and everything, I think it's just its name will draw enough people in. But how good of a quality film we'll be getting leads much to the imagination at this stage.
Well, I was going to say to your point about Kang, how nobody really cares about Kang. It just made me think this is the most expensive group survey ever. Like they have literally spent like close to billions of dollars just to survey people and say, "Oh, what do you think about Kang?" It's like, I don't really care about him as a villain. It's like, oh, okay. It's like, well, congratulations, Marvel. You have flushed billions of dollars.
Yes, they
tried to get us to love a villain that nobody gives a shit.
Yeah. It definitely. I think in hindsight, there's a lot of people kicking a lot of people's asses right now because I think it was not well received. Think about just an Ant-Man where he gets defeated by one character, right? So it's really hard to really get that invested when you kind of have what we've been shown so far. So, but yeah, I know that, but that's the state of Marvel, right? We've talked about to death that they've gone, they've been dropping quality left and right, and it's just been getting worse and worse. I think this is their really kind of last-ditch effort to totally try to change things around. So I guess we'll see what happens in the news and whenever they start putting some release dates on some of these films.
Well, they said the next two Avengers movies are supposed to come out in 2 years, so I guess we'll keep our ear to the pavement and see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to be too negative because we did see the cast for the Fantastic Four, and we did a review recently of Hobbs and Shaw. And we both agree that Vanessa Kirby did a phenomenal job in that movie. In spite of all of the BS that was going on. I kind of feel like the Fantastic Four would be pretty decent. Now, mind you, it is going to be a period piece, so it is set in the 1960s. But I am curious to see what's going to happen there. Do you have any quick thoughts on that?
I mean, it can't be any worse than the first two. So,
or
the first two, like in the continuity, right? Because obviously the first one had 2 or 3. I don't even remember. Right? I remember the Silver Surfer.
Yeah. So
and then you have Fan Force Tech.
Yeah, because because the first two had Jessica Alba in it, and then Fan Force Stick was basically the movie everybody wanted to forget.
Okay, yeah. It can't be any worse than those because, the first one didn't care that much about. Silver Surfer didn't care a whole lot about. Fan Force Stick was just bad, flat out bad.
It makes you wonder why you have eyes.
Bar is painfully low right now for the Fantastic Four, so hopefully. This ends up being good because they really need it to be good, especially if they want Doctor Doom to be the next big baddie, to carry to put Marvel movies on their back again.
But I also get the feeling too that whenever the next two Avengers movies comes out, it's not gonna have the same magic that the Avengers of the 2010s had. Like it's just not gonna be there. It's gonna be. It's kind of going to be like you're just going through the motions.
Yeah.
Really. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our review of Deadpool and Wolverine and our reaction to RDJ returning as Dr. Doom. Let us know down in the comments below what you think. Are you excited to see Robert Downey Jr. coming back and playing Dr. Doom? Or are you just scratching your head and asking yourself, what the hell am I looking at here? And let us know in the comments down below what you think of Deadpool and Wolverine. Are you mad at us for spoiling the movie? Because if you are, just go and see the movie already. It's out in theaters. It's not that hard. And if you agree with our talking points, or if you have a favorite cameo, let us know down in the comments below. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take it easy.